TAP, the Tree Ark project, eco-community proposal for a community land trust for the Bullock Hills at Hempton. This presentation was made to Hempton Parish Council in November 2019 and received their full thumbs up all round. So I started with a brief look around the site of the Bullock Hills, which is used by the community but also by the wider community. It's basically treated as common land and enjoyed by all. It's maintained and owned by the Raynham Estate. It isn't actually common land. And so they have a deed of responsibility, a financial responsibility basically, to steward the land here to ensure site safety for public access, even though they haven't, as far as I know, got a return for that investiture. So basically the site is maintained primarily by them, but I did point out to the parish council that we would hope to work with the landowners, with the parish council and with other non-profit organisations to help to steward the land as well, in exchange for the opportunity that we would have to live here. And this is the Dingley Dell area now, where we have the potential, or at least as proposed, to build eco homes in what would basically be a little microclimate, and that's the access. So there's quite easily access off the road separately for the area where we would be looking to build hobbit homes later, subject to all approvals, of course. There's quite a lot of land management needed there. When I met with Tom Raynham to discuss a previous site across the road, he said he didn't think that would be so good, that this might be better. So that's why this proposal was made and presented to the parish council. I would have gone back to Tom Raynham prior, but he didn't answer my emails, and besides which fact I needed to explain my situation, i.e. the proven need element of the proposal, to the parish council, because I know I represent an awful lot of local, rural, self-employed people in the communities in Hempton, for example, who've been forced out of the village or hamlet due to lack of affordable housing and amenities, and have been forced into towns and cities to seek employment, housing, infrastructure, etc., because so much has been lost in a lot of hamlets. So A is the original site discussed with the Raynham Estate. He proposed B, so I've also encompassed C and the lined area, which is a wetland area of meadow, which is also used by, provided with public access, apart from when there's coloured ponies on there grazing when it's fenced off once or twice a year or whenever. This is an area of hard standing, which, with the access re-established, would be phase one's area of operations. And the proposal was to set up an area of harass or other equal security fencing around this area, provide the access in, use this as a site for the design and build team for an open office, so that people can come in and look at the proposal, so it can all be discussed, somewhere where eco conferences and eco festivals can be organised, an area which can be started off with minimal impact, basically. To put shipping freight containers on here, to stand them as temporary site offices and accommodation, together with mobile homes, tiny homes, or adapted shipping freight containers, and porta cabins or mobile offices as well, with ecological toilets, showers, and a temporary generator put in there to provide power to the site. That's the access going up there now. It's just been ramped, so it's a minimal project to reopen that. So subject to approvals phase fund for this, as I proposed would be remove ramps to reopen the site access, etc. And we'd be looking at upcycling and free cycling, with donations encouraged of any building materials that we could use on site, to construct the hub, the visitor centre, the community hub, and B, later for the housing as well, the eco homes that we intended, and for other community buildings on the site, dependent on all approvals. But the immediacy of this would be right from day one, more or less. From being on the site, we would be helping to steward the land, to look after the land, to pick up the rubbish, to pick up any of the stewarding that the Raynham Estate or Hempton Parish Council or anybody else would be advising us that they needed doing, cutting back the ivy, for example, picking up all of this rubbish, maybe clearing some of the moss, because there are areas where there is just nothing but moss. It covers the trees, the ground and everything. All of these things would be following other people's advice, although that could be a very good fungal area of growth for mushrooms, for example. So we would need to look into that and to do whatever was needed on site. Some of the materials on site could ultimately be used on site, potentially, as either upcycled artworks, installations, or as the construction of the buildings. That removes a lot of landfill, and it also means that the building costs are brought down considerably by upcycling as many materials as possible. So it's lower impact, it's not damaging the environment because we're not digging anything up, or travelling it long distance, or minimising that by using what we can on site anyway. These notes are just basically the prompts and explaining it all to the parish council and later on to whoever else would be interested in looking at what we were hoping to achieve on the site. Interesting also with the eco conferences and with eco festivals, which we'd also propose. So we're looking at how people in the community can benefit by helping to look after community land, or as in this case even land which the Raynham Estate may benefit by our being able to look after. And they do have other sites within the estate which have been provided for non-profits, and this isn't for profit. The housing wouldn't be sold later, it would be for the community land trust, which would ensure that affordable housing would be provided in perpetuity and not sold for any money. And besides, these would be bespoke, handcrafted, hand-tailored and unique forms of eco homes, and not necessarily a standard build at all. So very difficult for anybody to put prices on arts and crafts, I suppose, homes. Minimal impact, as stated, which is something that Hempton Parish Council really liked. Showed these photographs. These were borrowed from the internet just to show the concept of the hand building that others have achieved where they've been able to do that. We'd hope to guide visitors around dressed up, which was one of our aims right from the beginning. So just to reiterate, so that's the site where we'd have the shipping containers, etc. But later on, this would be the site where the community hub was intended and proposed to be, with community offices as well as a visitor centre, educational resources and information provided within a sort of internet cafe environment, organic food available, and guided tours by fairies and pixies, metalheads, avatars and archangels, and whatever anybody else wanted to dress up from the community. Child safety being a key component of this. Alternative travel plans, tying in with ecotourism. So that people can either come and stay and pay, paying part, or participatory ecotourism, with alternative travel plans potentially tied in with community organisations within Fakenham and Hempton for this as well. So we'd be looking at an awful lot of potential tents, teepees, yurts, all sorts of alternatives that people could stay in whilst they were glamping on site effectively. And community gardens where surplus could be provided to the wider community, that which wouldn't be sold necessarily through the ecological cooperative hub outlet. That's the bobble diagram that was originally put together for TAP from 2008 or 9, and it's showing and telling. So showing Lammas, showing Woof, showing Tinker's Bubbles, CAT, Findhorn, Fife Eco Village, Earthship community there, all the way through, just showing and telling what's already set, important planning precedent, and asking, what can we build here, given that there is proven need locally for infrastructures, for employment, for affordable housing, to reduce landfill, to look at the artistic way that we used to be. So the showroom walls, which were always intended in our showcase community, was all about graphic depictions, which our ex-lecturer pointed out transcend language barriers. So if people can see and it's colour-coded, that was the aim with that. That was a basic flow chart that was put together to explain the social enterprise global art projects gap and the global eco-environment for children. We intended the design shop and the designs hop, one and the same thing if you put enough designers in a room together, which was the intention with that. And then I went on to explain that I'd always been an environmentalist ever since a child, and that I've always been against pollution. This was a poem that I wrote as a child at junior school age, I believe. And then I went on to explain the situation of need and desperation and how this really is a housing crisis. At the end of the presentation, Vivian Woods, the chair of Hempton Parish Council, gave me some feedback, which included the fact that I needed to turn the presentation around and introduce myself and my love for the environment first, and hence why the previous portfolio version is focused on that element first. Okay.